All right, cell phone is on silent. I'm bad habit of that, so as I'm doing it, let everybody. Oh, yeah. Okay.
No changes on anything?
All right. Calling this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. on January 15th, 2020. Let's stand for pledge, please. Mr. Smith, why don't you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Here. Mr. Rick.
Present.
Mr. Smith. Lady. Mrs. Swayze.
Here.
Mr. Underwood.
Here. Brings us to 3.0, modification approval of the agenda. Do I have any motions to modify or approve the agenda?
A motion to approve.
I'll second. All right, call for the vote, please.
Ms. Combs. Mr. Rick.
Aye.
Mr. Smith is absent for prior notice or delayed for prior notice. Mr. Swayze
Aye.
and Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Brings us to 4.0, student performances with a distinct lack of students in the room. I'm guessing there are none. Brings us to 5.0, open forum. Mr. McPherson, sir.
I'm the only one? Hi. Talking to the mic.
Please, so we can get it on the
Hi,
record.
Mark McPherson, 113 Millie Road. Been in the community for about 22 years. Again, you guys, I noticed on the agenda tonight that we're waiting to take you a look. I noticed on, let me step back now. There we go. I noticed on the agenda that you're going to be, one of the action items is to approve an extension for the superintendent slash principal, Dr. Schmidt. And again, I just want to remind you that as you take a look at what's going on, we've had some ups, we've had some downs, but the majority of ups way outweigh those that are down. And some of them that you need to remember are, and it's really what we're here about. We're here about kids, and that's what we're here about, kids. And when you see performance increase, and when you see a school such as an elementary school that goes out of priority improvement to performance, and if you don't understand that, before you vote, you need to take a look and understand what that means. We took a school that was down in rock bottom and moved it to where they're supposed to be in state standards. There are districts out there right now that schools are being shut down because they could not accomplish that. That's almost unheard of. And to do it in 2 years, you can't get any better. We attribute that to the leadership at the elementary school and the leadership with the superintendent. Then you take a look at what's happening at the high school. Take a look at what's the courses that are being offered. We now have an AP program. We haven't had AP here ever. That's, again, an astronomical feat for the kids. And what we're here about is kids. Our personal issues, our personal vendettas, our personal, whether we like him because he doesn't have any hair or whether we don't like him because he can hit a golf ball, doesn't matter. Sorry, I was trying to be wrong. What matters is...
Did you say you can't do it?
I said you can.
Oh.
Again, it's about kids, it's about performance, it's about offering. Walk around the schools, check, and see what's happening today. And you'll see that this school system today is better than it has been in the 22 years that I have been here. Now, I'll tell you that my neighbors say that, and I tell you that if my grandkids move back into this area, I would be proud to bring them here to Hamilton. And it's because of the leadership team that you've got going. I'm asking you not to disband that. Think about what you're doing, and let's make sure that we maintain and keep quality here. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. McPherson? Sir. Since that thing is so sensitive, will you turn that off, please?
I certainly will.
That is the most sensitive. There you go. All right. And that was the only person signed for open forum. Okay. Brings us to 6. By the way, for the record, Mr. Smith has joined us at 6:35. So that brings us to 6.0, consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Second. All right, call for the vote, please.
Hold on. Question, were
there any changes to the consent agenda prior to the meeting?
No changes to the agenda at all.
Ms. Combs? Aye. Mr. Rex?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. So brings us to 7.0 District Accountability Committee report. I see the DAC chair in the audience, so I'm assuming there is one.
Co-chair.
Oh,
Mike,
co-chair.
Mike needs to go back.
I'm sorry, I forgot you were coming up. The mic needs to go back on, please. Thank you, sir. It's really sensitive. You really don't have to bend down.
If I give anybody a headache, let me know. Wow, that is sensitive. Okay, so our last DAC meeting we had on January 9th. As we discussed last time I was up here, we did go over our ideas for the best grant. Based on the presentation that we received, pretty much falls in line with what's already being discussed. Our priority is really safety measures at the PAG for the travel for the students from the modulars to the school. That's really at the top of our list. We also, we understand the need for the roof of the PAG, water and septic at both schools, and also the HVAC here at the high school. So based on what we discussed with other parents and everything like that, that's primarily where our focuses lie. Okay. Also in that meeting, we discussed parent involvement. We're looking at trying to really define what we consider as far as parent involvement goes, how we want to quantify it, and then how we're going to improve it going forward. So we'll have more information on that as we do more presentations to the board. Outside of that, that's really all that we've got for you guys. So.
Thanks for the work. All right, that brings us to 8.0 Superintendent Collar, 8.01 Superintendent Collar. Sir.
All right, our audit began today in terms of physical. So our auditor arrived at Prairie Heights and started his work. We expect him to be there at least through Friday. And then beyond that, with Jasmine, I don't think you mentioned yet, it's kind of where will it be come Friday in terms of there's more time or not after that. Then this morning I was on a call, and actually Rochelle was in a meeting with me, we both heard on the mill levy equalization, that bill with some legislators who were trying to share what the new rewrite's going to be. I wrote notes and I'm going to email it to you guys so you can see it. But the big one is that they wrote in there, there's two of them. Rural districts like ours who have more than 10 mills to overcome, we get until 2025 to start. Everyone else will have to start in 2023. Anything
And when you say start, you mean?
yeah, that's when we go to. Anything that we go to the voters related to ask them, and I should clarify now because I'm going to go over here in a sense. We're at 8.433. We have to get to 27 mills at a rate of 1 mill per year. Now you can exceed that rate. That's what I was going to share. We can go to the voters and let's say we want to raise all of it and ask them, and they approve it before 2025. We get to keep. It doesn't count against us in the formula. We get to keep the difference, and we get to keep
The difference of 1 mil a year?
1 mil a year.
Wow.
So if we were to go to them, which we need 19 to round it. We need 19. So if we went to them now. The first year, we would, up until 2025, we get to keep all 19. 2025, we keep 18, and then it steps down. That's the incentive. The other incentive is if you're on track, 25% of all the money that's raised is going to go to a pot. And that pot's an incentive pot. And it's for rural districts like us. What it means is they'll match. Now, they have a formula on how much they'll match. But let's say we go up for $1 million. Our match is somewhere around 25%, because I asked about that. So if we go for $1 million and our voters approve it, now, we wouldn't, but I'm going to give you an example. Right. The state, if they pass it, the state will also give us $250,000. And so they're doing that as an incentive for communities where there might not be the will to want to vote for the mill levy, but this is an incentive that maybe they will, knowing they're getting more for their money. So that's the big one. Is that formula came from the CFO in Falcon 49. He created this structure, and that's what's now in the bill. So it's going to most likely, it looks rather favorable right now. There's an appetite for it. And so for us, we just need to be thinking, by 2025, we need to have gone to our voters. Here's the penalty. Each year you don't, they take away a mill, the equivalent of one. And so.
Each year we don't go to the voters, or each year we don't get a mill increase?
Both. But they have an initial safety net of 83% of what they would fund you before budget stabilization factor. So I did the calculation because our budget stabilization factor is around 360,000. That would still be 16, 17%, like the 83 that be. So that's pretty harsh. That's when you get down there. So as we lose a mill a year, that's where it stops. So on the call today, the rural superintendent who's in Bethune brought up their scenario where they just, kind of like us, they just can't pass the mill. And the recommendation was we at least put a safety net for those if we try, but our voters say no. And so they said, they're going to think about it. So that, I don't know what that verbiage will be in another draft, but at least they're thinking about that. And that's because one of the legislators who's a part of this bill writing, she said she grew up in a rural district, and another one grew up and represents Pueblo. And she mentioned how Pueblo never could until this past election. So she has an understanding. Now, whether that goes across the whole body, I don't know. So those are two or three of the big things to know. We have to go a mill a year. If we go ahead, we get to keep the difference. The state doesn't. And then also.
So you said that you think the chances of this passing is really good.
Right now, it's looking more and more favorable.
And when's the end of legislative session? Do you expect that answer?
This will probably be earlier versus later, probably more of a mid-session. So I bet we would know something in April. And because the way they're couching it now, the idea is not a bad idea. It makes sense. It's the question of if it's good or not, if it's right or not for your community, your district. But overall, it makes sense. The thing that's of concern is the proponents who started this have told the governor, and the governor's buying it, including the state address, that the only reason for budget state, the BS factor, is because of Gallagher. And Gallagher has put us in this position. It's like, no, that's not why. It's because of the financial crisis. So since I'm with Case in that legislative group, us and our lobbyists are going to be talking to his team here real soon to try to help him clarify that, no, remember here's the history behind it. Because we don't want to sell that message. This is supposed to be a solution to budget stabilization factor up fund. The max amount it is about $450 million, and that's at the end when everything's in play. So it's going to take many years to get there before it gets in play. A district like ours, since if we only go 1 mil, and that's the step, we're probably 19 years, 18 years. So that's
I mean, so this bill, is this got the new case formula in it?
No.
No, this is the old formula, just how the state's going to fund education.
This is not for school finance. This is the mill levy. They call it the mill levy equalization. There are 2 terms. And so they've been floating back and forth.
Right.
But for lack of a better word, I'd say mill levy equalization. The idea that every district should be at 27 mills for their program. Our program funding is 8.43 mills. So our taxpayers see they have to pay 8.43 on property taxes to fund our local share, which is only about 13% of the total amount. And so we are a district that will only have to go to 27. There are districts that anywhere between where they are at 27, as soon as they're fully funded at the local in the formula, they get to stop. Because they don't necessarily have to. We would have to go to, I think we calculated 120 some mills to be fully funded because our assessed valuation is so small, only 35, or now it's 37, 38 million. It's the same issue that our special districts face. You go out for a mill override. 1 mill doesn't bring in the same for us as it does for everything.
Right.
So it's
So they're looking at bottom line numbers, not just mills.
yeah, and it's more complex, but it's such an easy one for legislators to grab onto because the complexity is more than just this. But they're seeing this as an easy opportunity So, and I'm sure sitting on the board, what you've heard a lot about it, the fire board, the impact of Gallagher and what's happening.
So we Gallagher,
You were able to de-Gallagher?
our board Gallagher this last month.
I don't know, were you allowed, I don't think districts are allowed to de-Gallagher, but I hadn't heard that, so I'll look at it.
Even if we were, we can't pass, can't be anyway, so what would it matter?
So when you hear any talk of mill levy at the Capitol, now you have an idea, and what it means for us.
I know last year when I went to the legislative session by CASB, the legislatures were really thinking this was a slam dunk last year. And looking at how the political winds are flowing, I know they're really antsy to do it to free up the money, but I just, hopefully by April, that momentum is gone, because we're not the only district that's gonna get hurt by this. As I was speaking to other districts, I spoke against it. And I had a ton of people going, thank you, said that better than I could. Kit Carson, Hugo, all those districts on the Eastern Plains, they have zero commercial. They have less commercial than we do. So they're gonna get hurt just as much. And it's a shame that our legislatures are seeking to undo their mess on the backs of the school districts. Because it affects the municipality ones the same. They just got a bigger pool of people, but it's still a shame that a state issue that the legislators created is being taken out on the backs of school districts. That's really what's happening.
If they pass this in April, when do we have to go to the voters?
2025 is when it'll hit us in terms of penalty.
So we should try to go early.
And that'd be the decision of the board and how to chunk it or all of it. It's rather strategic, because since we get to keep it, you might say, let's go for, I'm just throwing this out.
Let's go for bills.
5,
Yeah.
or 2, or if you go for 5, you can keep 4 and 3 and 2 and try again. There are a number of ways you can skin the cat, I guess. But the only other thing that came up that we've always said, they put it in declaration, but there's also a declaration that they would fully fund kindergarten for the last 20 years. We're worried that, so they get this extra $450 million, there's another issue, who says they won't shift, and we then.
And then there's another budget stabilization factor type of thing. And
Right.
we're right back
To
where
go
we
out and
started.
get this mill vote, to get this from the district, I think we need to write something up so they understand this. 'Cause this is.
I think the board will fully vet all the materials that go out in the information packet regarding that mill levy.
Well, I agree, but we need to make sure they all get it.
Yeah.
We need to make sure it's in Spanish and English,
Yep.
so all of them can understand.
I'm with you.
Because this is confusing to me.
Now, we could try to tap into that 25%, but it's not a fully loaded account yet.
Right.
So, but you also have to be on track. So we had to at least pass once, right? To consider it on track. But, so just,
Yeah, when we pass one and it's 1 mil, then,
and we're on track, then we could apply.
all right, but then the next year,
And the next year, we gotta do it
We
every
can go for
year.
one, we can go for another, but then do 25% match. And you get to keep the 25% match.
So actually, it'd be more than 1 mil, because we only do the mill election every other year, right? So we'd have to go for 2 mills at a time.
Yeah, that was just, actually, in this scenario, they're laying it out as if you can go. And I don't know all the other descriptors in the bill, because I haven't seen it. They said on the call they've already redrafted, and I hope to get it out by Saturday, the new one. So if you guys are logged in with CASB, you'll also get a copy of whatever this bill is.
Okay.
So it was really nice. We had a student who was with us, and they fell under the foster student bill, even though it wasn't a foster student. They were placed with a family member with DHS. And so they came to us, and the student just went back to the mom, because the mom was able to do whatever they needed to do. But here's the compliment. We had myself and Amy Margolis, who's our SPED teacher here, on the call with DHS, with District 11, and as we finished the call to do the transition, DHS was incredibly complimentary of Hanover, saying that we don't get this kind of response time, cooperation from other districts. A lot of people might think you're a small district, you don't have to get together. And so they sent an email as well, complimenting us. So I just think that's great to know, because that's a whole team effect, and that would be Michelle and Chuck, and it would be Tim and his staff here, our SPED team here. So that's just a nice thing to have our names seen in a positive light and on education, so I wanted to share that. And another positive is that I got called by the Gazette to say, hey, comment, you need to comment on your 100% graduation rate. So I didn't think I needed to comment on that. I thought it would be better for Tim to comment on it. And so if you didn't see the article this morning in the Gazette, did I forward it to you guys? So just another kudos to 100%, but Tim, you did a nice job in that article, that you know that as well. Your comments were great. Only one other 100% was counting, so that's positive. I have the PowerPoints done for the 2 new explanation videos. One of them is on the amended budget, so I didn't want to do it until after we finish tonight. So I will record those probably on Saturday, and they'll go up. And I'll share those PowerPoints with you after tonight. I'll just email them so you can see what they are. They're going to be on finance, so one on the budget, and the other one just a reminder about money flows in, our different bank accounts we have, what they hold, how expenditures work, and just another reminder of how the whole thing works.
So the video that you did to that nature a couple years ago, is there enough change that it's significantly different enough that you need to do?
2 things. Number one, it's dated a couple years, and number 2, don't have the same staff. It's noted in there.
Fair.
The next town hall meeting is coming up. I believe it's Tuesday of next week. Just to let you be aware of that. Our SCAP visit, which is a big deal for us, is tomorrow. And we're excited, but at the same time, it's like planning a wedding party, and you don't feel like you have all the plans done. But I think we do. But it's an awful lot to pull together, so that's going to be pretty exciting. We'll definitely share everything with you guys. The idea is we then post and we share community and everything. February 11th, the reminder, so we'll have a board meeting between now and then, is District Spirit Night right here. We'll see the girls varsity and then followed by the boys varsity. We're playing CSBD that night. On January 29th, going back to my presentation in September, I mentioned how we're trying to look at how we can truly get a sense of where staff are implementing things in the school and how to measure for it. And so that's called an implementation configuration map. So on the 29th, Tim, Michelle, and myself, we're going to get together and do some initial drafting of a couple of those maps and start utilizing those with staff. And so when that's done, that means at the February meeting I can share with you guys what those maps look like. And if we complete them enough, we can give you a first glance assessment of where our staff are with implementation of things. Then I just had a data update for you. I can't remember if I sent this to you or not. It's the demographics from last year. So the way they do student demographics, they collect it from districts every year, but they're always late in reporting it. They just reported this last week. And so I wanted to share that across the top are the different areas that you can identify a student. Now, a student can be more than one, but our mobility, we're 5th in the state. We have the 5th highest mobility rate in the state. SPED-wise, we're 65th we're in the state. ELL, 42nd, free and reduced 53, migrants, 104th.
Mobility, that number is bad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We want our rate to be low. And it's high. And I will give you the raw data as well. It comes from CDU, and I just pulled it out of the sheet if you want to see what other districts look like. Free and reduced lunch, 53. Migrant is 104. Title I, though, which is related to free and reduced lunch, is 22. Homeless, we're ranked 9th in the state. And GT, we don't have very many identified. We're at 167 out of 179. So we still have some of the similar challenges that we have. The good news is that graduation rate. If you look over 4 years, ranked in the state from 153, we moved up to title first at 100. So
that's an attestation of small numbers. You have one student in your class number.
that's true.
Right?
Then it pushes your percent down.
Wait.
But I know you guys are like me. Tim, we need to see how you have to be at 100%. So if you can get to 101 for staff, that's good. Then I wanted to give you an update on the NWA because we had some students who didn't have everything done before then. So this is just a quick overview. I wanted you to see a comparison over the last 5 years. You can digest it and ask questions you might have afterward. But I did want to share with you that The top line is, the top row is percentile. Where are they in relation to other kids in the country? You want to be at 50th percentile because, as you know, percentile is down on the bell curve. 50th percentile is right in the middle. So you can be plus or minus about 5 to 8 and still be considered on track. So anywhere from 43 to 57 is about the same. That's in the middle where you want to be. The bottom is what we call conditional growth, and that's from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. And that is just how fast did our kids grow in relation to other peers who had the same score, the starting point at the beginning of the year. It's the same way that Colorado does the growth model. So in this case, you want to be somewhere in that 43 to 53, showing you're still keeping pace with your peers. If you're below that, that's not good, but if you're higher than that. So for example, in 2019 and 20, for the language usage, we're at 48th percentile. So that's growing basically where everyone else is. Math is 61, so we're growing a little bit faster. Reading at 62, the same thing, and then science at 45. Now, eventually, it's the ceiling effect, almost. The ceiling effect, because the higher your kids go, then you'll see more closer to the 50th. You might still have your outliers, though. But we're not that high. So when you look at last year, 18, 19, almost the same in language usage, but math and reading were 89 and 80 last year. They really were growing fast. And then science. So I don't have an answer on the math and reading other than say at least they're growing faster than average. But we're not at percentile rank where I can say, well, it's because we're getting close to the ceiling. And that's just that. But I threw the mobility rate there just to remind us that from year to year, even though we do what's called quasi-cohort, roughly a third of them are different. And so that's a little challenging because you don't know who your new third might be throughout the year. It's not an excuse because we have to deal with that like everybody else, but just to add that data point.
What grades are these in?
So this is going to be K through 11. We didn't do 12th grade. And then I tried to do the graph that I did for you guys at the beginning of the year, and looking in my Excel, I couldn't find an Excel base, and I was trying to search for it this morning. But I do remember at the beginning, you had a question about math, and I think it was 4th grade. Is that right, Paul? Why there was that discrepancy? And part of the answer is I don't know what it is. But I can say that 3rd grade class last year, which is now 4th grade, was our higher performing at the elementary. And we do have 5 new kiddos in the mix this year compared to last year. And all 5 of them are low performers. So that may or may not be part of what's at issue. But what we did is, now this is a little Prairie Heights thing, but related response, is Michelle and I spent all day on Wednesday. We met with each teacher for an hour, and we looked at their individual student data, and we just asked a variety of questions, and then we came up with some action planning on how we're going to meet the needs of our really high learners, our bubbly kids who could get to proficient for our test, and then also our lower kids, are they IEP, are they ELD, what do we need to do to provide some resources, supports to move them up? In all of that, I can tell you we still struggle with our ELD population so small. We've never had a really solid ELD program. So that's something we're still trying to develop. But we identified who these kids are, and we're going to see what we can do for them. Because a lot of those ELD, English language development kids, second language learner kiddos, they do struggle a little bit more. And we need to do a better job addressing their needs. That's a K-12 issue. So that's what I have for you. I told you I didn't have star data, but we ended up not taking that because it was pretty stressful for staff coming back, and I made a decision, let's not test our kids coming back. They're just stressing out. So that'll be the end of the year deal. And that is it. Just the last thing, I always remind you guys to come and take a visit. And I just remind you as well, related to that, if you ever have a question, please don't feel like you have to wait to come to this meeting, because I have a total zero policy or a couple of days before. I honestly invite you to come anytime. Or come here, and Tim, I know he's more than happy to answer questions. Rochelle's more than happy to, so do know that we're available for you. So thank you.
All right. Brings us to, yeah, thank you. Lots of notes. Let's see what it says.
I I can forward you my Cliff Note notes if you want.
I think I have the Cliff Note version.
Okay.
But it brings us to 8.02 board education comments. Mr. Rexar.
Do we know what we're doing with the old tractor? Have we purchased it new?
We've gotten several additional repair quotes for the tractor. And so we have three vendors and we have found a vendor that's significantly less than what the other two vendors are charging. So we could probably repair that tractor right around $5,000 and you could use it at Prairie Heights. Yes.
Thanks for that. Again, always thank you for the staff for looking out for our children. Just can't say thanks enough.
Mr. Smith.
Thanks for the staff and all you do, the teachers, then the maintenance staff especially. And on the maintenance staff note, just the cleanliness of our facilities, because right now is a pretty major flu epidemic throughout the country. And just the fact that we're able to remain open shows that our staff care what they do, and they do a great job. And I just want to thank them for that, because there are districts throughout the country that aren't faring well. And we've seen it in this region before. So thank you for all that you do for the kids and for the district. And then thank you for the parents that, you have a choice of where your children go. And we thank you for letting us educate your children and help them become productive citizens.
On the flu thing, you may have seen in the news, they had that static gun that when we purchased those last year, which you don't remember through the board, so that's what we use, right?
Sisser? Mr. Swayze, sir.
Good, thanks to everything.
This is yours.
I'm good too. Thank you. You guys said it all.
So, okay. This is weird. All right, it brings us to 9.01 best grant updates. So I'm seeing the 11 by 17 pieces of paper with highlighted lines on them. I actually hit them up before the meeting and did a quick once over.
You know how many copies you made to make sure I don't take all of them?
I mean, there should be 9 there, so like plenty. So we have been busy on this.
It's not
Yeah,
long.
that's what I know.
Dare I do that? Stand back.
We have two of them?
Yeah.
Yes, there's one for the elementary school, one for the junior senior high school. So over the last time we met, we've performed and summarized some of the assessments that we've seen around your facilities. Again, your facilities are in good shape overall, but there are some things that we've identified on there that require some attention. One of those methods of attention would be through a potential BEST grant, which would help fund primarily life safety and security items. As you'll see on that list, the highlighted elements are what typically the BEST program could provide assistance with. And there's several unhighlighted things that are things that can be handled through maintenance or capital programs or things of that nature. So again, there's things on that list that it's still a work in progress. There's numbers stated on there that we still need to verify some of those. So please take that as a draft. Even as we were talking about some vestibule options for the junior senior high school here that have been omitted from that list. So it is a draft. To date, we've done, this kind of summarizes our architectural, life safety elements, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing elements. We're still waiting some input from a specialist consultant that would talk about the septic issues that are occurring, and which would also include some of the water supply, water quality items at the elementary school. Just to kind of give you an overview of kind of the spreadsheet that we've tossed at you, it's kind of a lot to initially digest. There's descriptions of what we would say is an identified deficiency item. Then there's categories. There's kind of a 3-number categorization that we use, and I failed to give you the legend to that. So, you know, like a number 1 would be a life safety issue. A number 2 would be a code element, and then, you know, as you get closer to 5 and such, less in severity, you get to a 5, which would be something that doesn't impact student education, but something that would need to be addressed in 5 years. The fail category would be how quickly, you know, that we would expect that item to completely fail. 1 would be immediate, 2 would be soon, you know, and then you get to the 5 and 6s where, you know, it doesn't impact student education, but, you know, a 5 to 10 year replacement category. So, you know, that's kind of how all those go into a ranking, and then at the bottom you can kind of see a deferred maintenance ranking. So you can see a 0 through 25 is something that you would like to take care of sooner, more immediate need. 26 to 50, you know, you can put it off for a little bit. You get beyond that, and those are items that, you know, are more long-term. So then there's a dollar amount that we've associated with that. That's the general, I'll call it direct cost. So, you know, if it's like, not on the list, but saying like, okay, I'm going to replace a door. Well, the cost of a door panel is, you know, $500, and the door frame is another $250. That's kind of what the direct cost would be. The second number on there, which says total cost, and you can see the rate at the top is a 50% adder onto that direct item. And that's to cover, this is to give you a realistic idea of what the total cost of doing the work would be. So it's, if there's design fees associated, permitting, owner contingency, testing agencies, anything that's associated with other ancillary pieces that go into that one element, that's what gives you that total cost. So again, the life safety and things that we've identified that best typically will sign off on or be favorable to best have been highlighted in yellow. We'd like the opportunity to work with you to look at that list in greater detail and to potentially prioritize some of those, and then also, you know, if there's any prioritization that we need to talk about for any of the other things that would not be best grant, we can certainly be happy to do that with you as well. Another note about this list, this does not take into consideration any programmatic elements that you may want to look at as a long-term master plan. You know, things like, you know, transitioning modulars to permanent space at the elementary school, or bus facilities. Those are things that the best grant process is not typically awarded, but we'd like to work with you to develop, you know, priorities of what you would need from that. So that's not included in this list, but it's going to take some time to develop that over the next several months. Again, best grants are due into the state to be submitted towards the end of February. We would like to work with you between now and the next board meeting to refine this list so that way come February everything is in order and you guys are comfortable with what, if you choose to submit a best grant, 1, and 2, if you do choose to submit a best grant, that you're comfortable with the scope of work. Because this, you know, obviously from a cash grant standpoint, there are, if you were to submit, there would be matching funds that the district would have to provide as collateral, or you can try and pursue a waiver for that if you chose to do that.
So when you think that you'll have the next update of this list ready for us to actually sit down and work on?
I think this list is pretty good to discuss now. Again, the ones that are missing that I think require some refinement that are the septic related issues. This is a good list just to start with. I can update the things that we talked about in the next week, and I can distribute that through Michelle and Dr. Graham to get that to your board. So I think within the next 2 weeks, you can certainly sit down and discuss.
A work session to go through that. So whether it's a good thing or bad thing, that work we spent on all the travel money from now to the end of March, so we'll not travel till the end of March. Whether that pleases you, displeases you, relative. So pretty much available. What seems to work best for everybody? So, and you said that generally on Mondays you have,
It don't matter. Let me know in long enough in advance, I can work around most of it.
27th is Monday.
oh, I thought you were saying that's the date you're looking at on the calendar.
That's the date.
No, that's the date I'm looking at. I was looking at when you said the 27th. 27th? It's the 27th? Yeah, it's Monday.
Yeah.
Does that work for you?
I have that open on my calendar.
Dr. Schmidt?
I can make it work. We have teachers going to visit school, and Michelle and I are going to budget management seminar, but I'll have to hear between the two. Michelle is going to want to get it too. So if we need to be late to that seminar or that same half.
Well, so now that we've all pretty much agreed on a day,
Yeah.
now the question is what time we want to do it. We'll start at
Is that just
lunchtime.
a call?
Yeah, well, and
Wednesday.
yeah,
I'm waiting.
to find out whether or not you're gonna be in town. Yeah.
I was gonna say sooner better since I don't know, but but whatever works.
I know that Danielle and I can meet you guys at 7-Eleven around 7:15 in the morning. That's what we do.
Without hoodies.
That's when you run into me, when I just run in for coffee.
I'll be there.
Like, do we be there like a Frankenstein thing, or
That's
like
fine.
that thing?
Breakfast is fine.
Fair morning's better than Thursday.
Okay, so what do we want to call it, 8?
Wait, is that good
Say AM or PM?
And
Why don't you slide it back just a little bit,
from
for you?
9,
about 8:30 or 9.
we'll call it 9.
Okay, 9, good, 9's good.
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm planning for it, I think.
Just, I got therapy.
That would work.
Will 9 work?
I'll put it on my calendar, yeah.
Oh, well, I would guess here,
You wanna go here,
Military, right?
any preference, Dr. Schmidt?
Wherever's most
I was kind of, well, Monday's kind of sort of an off day, right, for Rochelle, so it's not like there's gonna be a water pipe that bursts in the middle, you need to race over.
Not gonna handle it.
Sorry,
Okay.
is everybody fine with here? I mean, would you prefer here or
9
elementary?
o'clock here?
I'm equally, I
Okay,
need some
Ed called it.
Hey, you said it,
Yeah.
so write it down.
I'll have better room Thursdays.
What was that determination? Was it here?
Here,
Okay. 9.
maybe not in this exact room, but,
This building.
yeah, this building, 9 o'clock AM, 27th January, 2020, will be back.
Awesome. And if you have any questions between now and then on anything that's on this list, or, you know, I have a general number if the whole septic system needed to be replaced, I have an idea of what that number could be if you needed that. I can provide that.
So I have a question on the senior high one. I don't see any security updates on there.
Right, that's what's missing, that's what we just talked about, earlier, of doing that. So I'll add that in and the update that I provide.
Sir?
We have a copy of that from that.
Sir?
Here,
For the sake of the interactive calendar, you want 9 to noon?
That's one thing.
I just wanna make sure I-
Someone in the back is gonna.
I think I'll put on the interactive calendar right here, so that's what. Take it off.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and save me the time, sure.
Rochelle has an electronic copy of this in PDF format.
Oh, you want to set an end time?
He does.
I just put 9 to noon,
That's fine.
just for
I
community.
can't imagine it should take us more than 3 hours to rack and stack it. Argue and ask questions,
Sure.
because, you know, I'm seeing some things that are highlighted in yellow with some really large numbers, and, you know, with the ranking, and I just kind of want to understand how it gets there from there. But we can go over that.
Right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
We appreciate it.
We do.
Related scheduling logistics, would you like for us to schedule a DAC meeting shortly after you guys look at it? Or
I'm hoping that the co-chair of DAC in attendance is going to staff this evening will sort of rally the DAC members to be there at this meeting so we can all do this work session together.
Jeff, he's requesting all DAC members to be in the meeting, please.
Monday the 27th, 9
In the
o'clock.
morning, on a Monday, it might not work, but I will see you there.
Well, regardless, I'm assuming you're gonna have a DAC meeting sometime after that, before the next board meeting, so you'll certainly be able to walk away with the results of that work session and talk with the DAC about it if you can't get a bunch of members there.
So we'll work to schedule it that week, so you guys can see it fresh in case there's any questions before the board meeting. Perfect. How's that sound? Yeah. Since we're on that timeline.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, I have to imagine that, two piece of paper this big, all those numbers is a lot of work to do. So, thank you everyone that contributed to that work. All right, so now that brings us to 10.0 executive session. I make a motion to move into executive session to be conducted to discuss personnel matters, discussions of matters not specific to particular employees, not general personnel policies. Or I should say, discussion of matters specific to particular employees, right? Not general personnel policies. It does not include discussion of board members or appointments to the board in accordance with CRS 246424F. Do I have a second?
Second.
Call for vote.
Ms. Combs? Mr. Redd?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Brady?
Aye.
President?
Aye. So we will adjourn to the conference room, I assume? Motion carries. I'm turning this off, Irene, so you're going to have two separate recordings.